Hi everyone, welcome back to What the Fintech, your Fintech Feel Good show. What the Fintech is a news and information platform covering the latest fintech development in Hong Kong, Singapore, China, and Asia. Join us every Wednesday for engaging conversation with various Asian tech figures to discuss about entrepreneurship, emerging technology, customer engagement, and partnership. Before starting this interview, feel free to share your comment in the comment section. And also, if you can like it and share it with everyone, it would be great for us. Thank you very much. Today, we have Calvin, CEO of Wizpresso. Hello, Calvin. How are you?
Hi, thank you. I'm doing well. Thank
Uh,
you.
Thank you very much for coming today. I saw you last year at Hong Kong Science and Technology Park for Demo Day, and I find your solution very interesting. So that's why I sent you an email to come
No,
to the
that
show.
that's great, and thank you for having me. It's such a great setup here. So
Thank you very much. Um, Before we start this discussion, maybe like for everyone who doesn't know you yet, can you introduce yourself and what you are doing? What is your background?
sure. So I founded the company about 4 years, almost 5 years ago now. So I've been doing that since then. But before that, I used to work at HSBC. So I came from a banking background. Also with some experiences covering corporates, along with also looking across Asia. Before that, I'm a bit of a hybrid, so I spend one third of my life in Canada. I
Okay.
was born in Canada, but actually grew up in Hong Kong. So people call me a hybrid because I speak English, Cantonese, some Mandarin, but I'm also accustomed to both sort of the Western and Eastern cultures, and which is why I think I this is one differentiator when working in Hong Kong, especially doing startup, to face a lot of Western financial institutions, especially in fintech, but with also growing importance amongst those Chinese players as well.
Well, this is I cannot disagree with you because I'm also mixed. So for me, like I have two cultures, and it's what I love about people when they bring like two cultures and they can grow with these cultures and share a lot of love with those ones. We kind of like we spoke about your company, Wizpresso. Can you just introduce quickly what is your company doing here?
Yeah, so we are a Hong Kong-based technology company specializing in capital market SaaS solutions. So basically, our company specializes in natural language processing and deep learning. We're a team of around 30 people. Almost more than 75% of us are data scientists and software engineers. So I'm sort of the semi-technical, less technical person, but I've learned a lot over time as well. So my passion is in computers, is in AI. So it's great. I can marry some of my previous experiences along with what I'm doing now.
Before we go more deep into your company, one of my questions I like to ask to all the entrepreneurs coming here: becoming an entrepreneur is sometimes a turning point in a life. What was your turning point to become an entrepreneur and start your business?
For me, uh, I think the moment is when I was working in banking. I had a lot of ideas around how we could make different processes or better do things in a better way. Actually, entrepreneurship is not new to me. Back in university, I was really passionate about entrepreneurship. In fact, I didn't do any finance related study until when I go into business school, but also not as much as I would have done if I worked in banking. So I was always planning to do some sort of startups. But when I came back to Hong Kong, and then speaking with different mentors, I always keep a book with a lot of ideas on it. When I go around the city, when I travel, I keep track of ideas. Um, but coming back, Hong Kong is still very financial driven. There's a lot of professional service industries. So ended up I went worked at a bank and did my CFA just to patch up some of my financial knowledge. But I've always been you know looking for ways we could innovate. So I think back then I was doing a lot of data driven roles as well. And one of the biggest challenges, not just banks have, most corporates have, is how they process or analyze unstructured data. So uh, I think as an analyst, I deal with a lot of models, financial models, but also read a lot of reports in order to, analyze things. And basically, I always think about how can we do this better, but with technology. I actually tried driving some initiatives internally within the bank, but I found it very hard back then. So this is about 5, 6 years ago. I went all the way to the top, trying to get budget, trying to push through some project, but it was really hard. So the moment is when I feel like so I built things internally. People are very happy. They use it, but it's nothing as complex as what we do today. Maybe it's some macro. It could be VBA. We all use that at some point. But when I see people enjoying it, I feel very happy as well. And that's when I know, hey, I should do something more akin to innovation. All right, but also leveraging on what I know. So essentially, with Espresso specialize in natural language processing. What that means is how we comprehend documents specifically for us. So our core technology focus on training neural network that comprehend documents. It's not OCR, so a lot of people misunderstood us as OCR, which is what when you put a name card, you scan it, it put in
Mhm.
all the info. Basically, we use a neural network to understand and comprehend documents. And the benefit of that is we can actually understand the context a lot better. We can also cover a wide range of unstructured documents. So we're talking about annual reports, ESG reports, prospectuses, credit documents, and all that. So, and that's how I began my journey.
Um, your product is focusing in English language or every language? Do you have like some specificities about that NLP you are using?
Yeah, great question. So, um, of course, we're based in Asia, so English, Chinese, simplified, traditional. We do have more clients focusing on those. But in fact, from a deep learning perspective, there's actually a lot of multilingual transformers. So sometimes I tell people it doesn't matter because we are actually not only training the AI on what languages to read, we are training them how to read documents within certain context or without context, but regardless of the language, still be able to identify relationships between different elements. So we're talking about chats, graphs, tables, paragraphs. And only when you identify those features, then you can go into a paragraph and say, hey, if it's a credit document, what's the deal size? What are the collaterals? Those come after. But the first stage is how you as an person would read it and teach that thinking process to the AI.
And how's the idea of doing this came to you? Because you spoke about your journey at HSBC before, creating the solutions,
Yeah.
but you didn't tell me how you really focus on the idea of doing the NLP for those documents. Yeah.
It's quite a long way. So when the company first started, um, it was really hard to do banking solutions right away, as in serving banks, because banks have a very rigorous process, especially on core banking system. Despite the first idea is how we apply NLP on credit, on not just credit, but understanding management capabilities. So looking at more alternative data, how we can complement that with the traditional approach. Um, it was really hard to get in there, so we first started focusing on equity research. So essentially, one of our very first client was Credit Suisse. Essentially, we did not pitch them; we did teach ins. So we
Okay.
had a lot of passion in NLP and how we apply that to unconventional data. So looking at perhaps e-commerce data or even regulatory documents. So applying a layer of NLP, but reading untraditional, non-traditional documents. And basically, we did a teach-in. They were really excited. Some of the MDs actually tell us, "Hey, you need to come back again because half of my team were not there." So we did a second teach-in, but that was already sort of a work meeting. That was great. I feel very blessed to have people who appreciate this, and this was quite a while ago, maybe 3 4 years ago, and so we started in equity research, but essentially, what we found is we need scalability, and doing alternative data had its challenges. Everyone wants exclusivity. You don't want to share, your secret data with other people. So as a startup, we need to find sort of common pain points, right? So back then, it's about finding edge throughout a review research process. And essentially, what we ended up doing at first was building our first search engine. So the search engine is similar to how Google works, but instead of searching the wide web, we search regulatory documents, we search company filings, and documents that are relevant to research analysts. And slowly over time, we grew that to cover more and more different stock exchanges. Today, I think we cover 12 capital markets, more than 28,000 publicly listed companies, and over 50 million documents. All right, so there's a lot of work put in to grow that. But at some point, we met more partners, we met more friends within the capital markets field. So there's a ton of stakeholders. We came across some friends in the legal field, and basically, within legal and legal tech, at back then, a lot of focus was still, project management, how we can improve workflow. AI wasn't really a thing within the legal tech field. So some lawyers look at our search engine and say, hey, we can actually apply that to due diligence. All right. So that is when we then started our second platform. So the first platform, the search engine, was is called Discovery. Now the second platform that we built is called Factify, and that is quite a ride. So essentially, it started as a proof of concept. We worked with one of the largest law firms, and essentially try to understand the workflow around specifically transaction verification, so IPO verification. So essentially, when you file for an IPO, there's a prospectus. In Hong Kong, it's notoriously long. It's about 600 pages, could be longer sometimes, could be slightly shorter. Uh, and essentially, what lawyers have to do is they have to circle up the whole documents. They have to index each statement, so each sentence by sentence. Even if it's a financial table, then it becomes each number by number. They apply reference IDs, and they also have to differentiate between what constitute a fact versus an opinion. And they have to verify the facts. And if it's an opinion that they cannot verify, then somebody has to sign off on it. Um, so we feel that there's a lot of room where tech can help. It's a repetitive process, but still very important. And that's why we apply sort of the same document comprehension framework to due diligence. And essentially, that's how Factify was born. That gained a lot of traction. Actually, won the HKICT Grand FinTech Award last year.
Well, congratulations.
Yes, yes,
It's a big prize here in Hong Kong.
yeah, yeah. If for people in the tech industry, definitely.
So every time you develop a product, it's because you have a big corporate in front of you having this need, right?
Yes, yes.
And do you have this experience with other products you could develop after this, or it was mostly for those two ones?
I'm glad you asked, because a lot of times we don't build the product before we know their clients. Usually we follow where the client takes us, and we call that a co-development, co-creation process. And I found that worked really well, especially in a rapidly growing environment. So I'll take a few examples. So a lot of times clients tell us, a lot of ideas. We love engaging them in sessions where we don't talk about any of our products. We just ask, what they're up to. But most importantly, how do you want technology to help them? So a lot of times we prioritize not just our pipeline, but we think about how we can co-create new solutions to grow their business. So a lot of times, technology, people think of it as a time-saving tool. We have a different view. We feel we should augment processes. So AI and people should coexist. We are not replacing workflows; we're augmenting them, meaning we're making you much stronger. So all the time, our scope is always thinking about how we can build new solutions where you can do your work better with less time, but also unlock possibilities where you can onboard either more clients or create new businesses. So, for example, most recently, with Create, a solution with the Hang Seng Index. Basically, using the search engine, uh, what we've done is we've helped them build thematic indexes. So traditionally, they may have a whole research team to read through reports over months, trying to identify uh, companies that are relevant to a specific theme. So, for example, most recently they've launched a metaverse index,
Okay.
essentially, looking at what companies are somewhat or highly involved in the metaverse business. It could be upstream or downstream, and essentially that would normally consume a lot of time. For the research analysts, not only to shortlist them, but to review and make sure these companies are relevant. So a lot of times, how do you start? Where to begin with? Because if you're relying on traditional industry classifications, you don't have a metaverse uh,
Right.
tag, right? So what we've done is similar to Google. We help them analyze all the company metadata and documents. And just within minutes, they can already shortlist and screen companies that are relevant to specific themes and keywords. So that's only phase one, right? We want to help clients like this to create more opportunities. So in that scenario, they can now have a lot more flexibility on testing, piloting different ideas. So I'm very, happy to see these.
So you spoke about how you develop the product with you co-create your product with your partners. Do you have any business model right now? Do you do like a SaaS model? Do you do this by project, or do you do this by memberships? They can just, pay every month or every year for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, yeah. So normally for people who subscribe to our existing products, it or work like a SaaS. So it's a subscription model. So depending on which platform you're talking about, it could either be a per user slash workspace based. So a lot of our tools have dedicated workspace where multiple members of your team can log into the same space and share ideas and collaborate. So we always have collaborative aspect built within our research and due diligence software. Um, Apart from a usage subscription based model, we also have co-creation model. So co-creation means it's different from customization because co-creation means we see a scope where this can become much bigger, not just for this client but for the entire industry. So a lot of times we tell the client upfront we're happy to enhance our product in a way that meets your requirement. Okay, but then we still can use this and replicate this success with a lot more other companies. Right, so the co-creation model, basically we don't charge the client the total development cost. Basically it's uh, the concept is we'll get there, and by then you need to subscribe. So it's like a the corporate version of Kickstarter, I
Yeah,
would say.
kind of a agile methodology as well
Exactly.
to say. What makes the difference between you and your competitors on the market? Because in Hong Kong, we know that there is a couple of NLP startups. Each seems to have a specificity there. What is yours?
Yeah. So looking at just the element itself, I know there are NLP companies that focus on generation. It could be focusing on a different medium of text. Could be chatbot related, could be audio related. We are specifically focused on capital markets documents or business documents to be specific. So PDFs, for example, is a very unique challenge here in Hong Kong and in Asia because if you look at capital market stocks in the US, they are mostly quite structured in HTML as well as XBRL format. In Hong Kong, they're very colorful. They look like a yearbook, and it's quite hard for a lot of investors here to easily understand and extract relevant insights from them. So we specialize on understanding that. But on the other hand, we're different in a way because a lot of times I describe my company having the left arm and the right arm. On one hand, we're doing research related products, which means we have data covering all over the world. And that enables us to power up our other hand, the left hand, which is on due diligence. So that's more workflow specific. It's more basically focusing on documents that you own, which is different from looking at publicly available documents. So we are special because we are hybrid, having the big data capability compared to workflow, collaboration, automation capability, and combining both. I think we're quite unique that way. We don't compete directly with all the financial data providers because we do workflow as well, and we don't compete directly with the legal tech because they don't do the data side as well.
Are you focusing only on Hong Kong for your market, or you're also like a cross country in Asia?
We're cross country, so a lot of our clients are quite international. Naturally, they always ask us to whether they can scale that within their network. But being in Hong Kong, we're very well positioned to capture the rapidly growing financial markets here. So I think we have the advantage of setting the standards here in Hong Kong, especially when we're doing technology that are completely new for the region. So uh, replication and growth is definitely on in our plan. Southeast Asia, looking also in Europe and the US potentially.
Okay, interesting. You mentioned you have 30 employees right now. Are they mostly engineers? Do you have sales? Do you have like operation teams?
Yeah, so we are a very tech focused company. More than 75-80% of the team are from a technical background. So usually for my company, because it's so focused on building neural networks, we actually have our own annotation team just to create training data. And the reason why is different from a B2C company where they would generally get data from the consumers. A lot of our neural network are quite specific to certain professions and workflows. So we have a team that do that. Also, data science team and product and so forth. Our culture is quite lean and people talk to each other. We don't try to segment them into different departments. Everyone work together, and we find that very successful.
Can you share more with us about the culture of your company and how you drive your company?
Yeah. So my motto is don't tell people what to do.
Mhm.
Ask them what they want to do. I only ask the question. So basically, we have a very decentralized culture where we just promote trial and error. I never chase after someone if they make a mistakes. Just don't make it many times, or then it becomes quite silly. For me, it's about it's much more effective for our colleagues to tell me what they want to do because it's coming from them, and usually they won't fail themselves, right? I think the KPI is quite different. A lot of times we look at traction, we look at usage of our technology rather than just revenue and cash. And we found that quite different from the traditional approach. Um, I think the other piece is empowerment. So apart from letting them tell me what to do, which is also a type of empowerment, we also have a very clear ownership, amongst people. So everyone is working on something important. There's no appendix within the company, and we have people who very much enjoy that, and which is why startup is such a fun industry.
And I would like to ask you a question about your team, but also about your product. So you
Sure.
mentioned your teams can fail fast, and but learn. They need to learn fast and don't make the mistake again. And also you mentioned about the big corporate working with you and helping you to create a product. So how do you design the product? Do you do a lot of iteration? Do you do a lot of workshop with the companies? How your teams is helping to improve the product as well? Yeah, how do you develop everything there?
Sure. A lot of times we would try to understand the style of the client first. So we've worked with a wide range of clients, some more traditional, some less so. I guess for the more traditional ones, we have to um, make sure we provide the right confidence, but also where their comfort zone is, because um, everyone talks about agile, but not all companies like to work in an agile way, and we cannot force that upon clients. So I think our role is to be the listeners, right? We try to be as flexible as we can when working with different clients, and essentially, a lot of times our clients learn about what we do and genuinely has an interest on how they can apply that internally. So I find that as a very common theme, not just for us, but for a lot of tech companies in Hong Kong. We sometimes put on the hat of product development, but more so, we are consultants, so management tech consultants, just showing what people could achieve with technology. So we call that the sort of user tech gap, because the end users normally are not as informed about the latest technology as practitioners, but practitioners are also not as informed about the current issues. So we try to close that by not just showing them what we do, use cases, demo, that is quite essential for us, but more importantly, I think bringing them through an imaginative journey. So thinking about the vision of the company, that's even more important. So there's a top-down approach where we, apart from doing teach-ins, we actually um, brainstorm with the management about what could be achieved if we do this. So it's never a one stage process, even if they're using some of our SaaS model, because we are also trying to fit in through the life cycle or journey of different workflows for different professions. So for the more innovative companies or fast moving companies, then we're dealing with a lot more sophisticated users. And sometimes we learn from them as well. There are limitations of what larger companies can or cannot do.
Mhm.
And that's also sometimes why they try to find a third party, a tech partner to do that. And we appreciate it. So we try to be as honest and transparent as possible. We don't oversell our capability, and essentially we do a lot of explaining. So some companies, some startups may be a bit secretive about the technology. We're actually quite open that way. We let them know where our positioning is, and we'll never compete with you
Yeah,
at some point. So I think just building that trust is quite important.
transparency is really important for partnership with banks and large insurance. Um, where do you see your company in the next couple of years? How do you want to continue your growth with your team, but also with your clients and customers?
Yeah, so we're working on a lot of very interesting initiatives just within capital markets. I think a lot of attention was put on how our products augment transactions, but in fact, there's still a huge room for periodic reporting. So apart from the IPOs, the rights issues, and how we can verify them and perform due diligence and research for them, there's a huge gap within periodic reporting, which means annual drafting and verifying annual reports, and more importantly, ESG reports. So with increasingly complex requirements, disclosure requirements, and different taxonomies across different region, there's a lot of areas where we could help using technology to uh, both help the buy side investors on how they can better understand the benefits of ESG, but also on the sell side, how they could better disclose and prepare their ESG related information and communicate that with the investors. So that's one of the few initiatives we're focusing on. The other piece is replicating our document comprehension technology beyond capital markets. So essentially, we have very successful use cases in research and due diligence, but companies in other sectors also have a lot of reporting to do, and a lot of them involves documents. So what we're building essentially is how to allow companies without a lot of data science capabilities to still be able to use and build their own AI and their own neural network. I think the vision we've set here is all the companies have their own personality, and they shouldn't rely on an off the shelf AI model built by a third party. So we're empowering different companies to build purpose driven, specific AI with the tools that we can provide. So we're building, for example, a no code annotation platform
Mhm.
where even if a company don't have any software and data science capability, their analyst, their industry expert, subject matter expert can still log in. They can collaborate and train AI using the tools that we provide through this platform without any coding. So we feel that's a very powerful thing that we're doing and how we're changing how corporates work in the future.
Thank you very much for the vision, and everything you explained to me are really clear until now. I have a couple of questions about the beginning of your company.
Sure.
And did you face any challenges when you start, and how did you overcome those challenges there?
Oh, where can I start, right? For all the founders, for me specifically, when I first started, I don't have anything, so we called it the trio, the trinity of a start, which is having a product, having a market, and having resources. I did not have any of those, so it's about finding the right partners, people who are willing to help in the very beginning. I'm very blessed to have met many people, many friends who have helped me along the way. So they could be mentors, they could be people within the ecosystem. So I think the scene has also changed a lot over the past 4 or 5 years since I started. I think back then we did not have so much support. I mean, even this podcast, I think we don't have those back then, especially in Hong Kong. So it was quite difficult to find traction. Nobody has heard of the word regtech, if not fintech, right? And people think of fintech very differently. Back then, there's still a lot of payment related application, not so much on capital markets and research. And maybe a lot of focus was put on the compliance side, right? So essentially, my the difficulty was how we could, or I could pull different levers to get closer to a product. So uh, I think my priority was building a product. So I actually, when I first started myself, learned a bit of coding, built an MVP, all that very exciting. I didn't start in a garage. There's no garages in
In Hong
Hong Kong,
Kong.
but I started in a coffee shop. So that was fun. I think thinking back then, there are of course moments where I would think, hey, why am I doing this? But I hatched that by quitting my job. I know if I work this part time, I would then, give up. So I think there's a bit of naiveness, but it's also, sinking the ship before I move to another new ship. I'm glad it worked out.
And how did you find your first partners in your company?
Sure, sure. So I started the company myself, but I think through different process and just meeting people. It doesn't have to be people who are interested in startup. It could be people who are not yet doing startup, but the vision and the personality fit, the overall team that I'm trying to build. So I think the biggest challenge still now, and it's still a challenge, is finding the right talent. We put a lot of energy in talent cultivation, but also understanding what our current team is really good at. So back then is what I'm good at and less good at, and who would probably be the one who can grow together. So very blessed to have found I think my first colleague that I found still with us today, our head of technology. So he did not come from a startup background. Took a lot of convincing, and then join us and till today. So we still keep focus apart from selling and promoting the company. I spend 1/3 of my time on people, and that's not just managing the team but also on recruitment. So I myself is a fintech lecturer at Hong Kong U Space.
Mhm.
I work with a lot of universities here in Hong Kong. Could be doing sharing. I have the course in fintech. I also work on different types of research with different professors, and that really helped bring the profile to be more young people friendly, to be more innovation friendly. So people who are, you know, uh, they want if they want to try new things, they would come to us naturally. A lot of times we asked candidates, why don't you join the big banks and come to us? And the response is quite amazing. They tell me, a lot of companies say they're doing AI, but there's a lot of strings attached, and some companies don't even let you install the right programs to do it,
Mhm.
and which is why they've heard about us. There's word of mouth from interns and students, and also people who have worked with us, and they come to us naturally, telling, we know you do NLP. I studied NLP, or I'm really interested in that. So it's like dating, right? We find we're trying to attract talent who are passionate about what we do.
I did several interviews before, and everyone's here, like Alvin from One Degree, Ambrose from Mescare, Brian from Chocorub, told me that they spend at least a couple of hours every week just to speak with people and see if they're a good fit for their company. Seems that it's a big trend right now between all the entrepreneurs in fintech to find the right person and spending, you say, one third of your time, maybe like 10 hours per week as well doing this. Um, what is the key element for you to consider a candidate to become maybe a future employee of your company?
Yeah, great question. So we look a lot at their passion and their character. I feel startup is not for everyone, and there's no clear one is better than the other. And what I mean is, big companies, smaller SMEs, it really comes down to the personality. And if you're someone who are uh, very who grow in an environment where things are fast changing, but also comfortable with a very wide scope of things, but not scale, and that's basically characteristics of a startup. Also, we need people who can be self motivated to think about new ideas, and be comfortable with having no one telling them what to do. I think that's very important. And I feel, there's a lot of young people today who are very well prepared for that.
Mhm.
And I'm quite surprised that way. I think when I first started working, I wouldn't be able to do a startup right away. I learned as I the company grew. Uh, but I think for the young people today, the next thing is what drives them, what motivates them. So if they're always thinking about solely on their own career progression and what they want to do, then it's probably not suitable for them, because in a startup environment you have to think about what the trends are and where the trends would take you. So no matter how smart and powerful you are, if you're in the wrong trend, you're in the wrong pond. Even if you're a big fish, you would dry out someday. So we need people who think very holistically rather than just thinking, hey, I want to be this and that. It's like, what does the market need right now?
You share a lot with us, so I won't ask you to stay more, but I have a couple of conclusion questions for you.
Okay.
Is there any takeaway you hope the listener get from this interview?
Be open minded. Be humble. Depend on what type of listeners. So if you're someone who really trying to do your own startup, think about new ideas, really listening is quite important. I know some friends who uh, want to do startup, but struggling to find problems to solve. So it's like a product chasing pain points. I think when go with your heart, I think that's the key takeaway. When the heart tells you it's the right way, then there's no regret. Even though there's always difficulty. Don't overthink it. Go with your heart, but also don't neglect your family and friends. Those people would be your spiritual support when you don't have your boss, your big boss supporting you.
Yeah,
So
I do agree with you. Friends are really important, and you need to have a stable life and balanced life to really, sometimes step back a bit from the pressure and look up. Just look up, just not being so, focus on the problem or on the small world there.
exactly.
Where our listener can know more about you and your company? Do you have a blog? Do you share a lot of content on LinkedIn or maybe on Twitter?
Yeah, yeah, I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so do follow me on LinkedIn. If they want to learn more about me, message me. They can of course visit our website. We also have a wide range of solutions. So if you work in capital markets and wish to learn more, just ping me. I'm happy to show you more about what we do.
So the best way to contact you is through LinkedIn.
Yes.
Okay. So if you want to reach out to you, they will do it like this. Do you have any blog with your company? Do you do some articles time to time? So
Yeah. In terms of content, I do help a lot of friends to do sharing. Sometimes at school, sometimes at university, maybe like podcasts like this. So I do share most of these content on LinkedIn as well. We have a company media page where we also keep up to speed on or keep our investors and clients up to speed on our media development as well as product development. So if you're interested to learn more, just visit those.
thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you. The discussion was really clear for me.
No, thank you so much for doing this. I find this really enjoyable.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for listening or watching this video. Feel free to reach out to Calvin and to me if you have any more questions. Feel free to also to share this video or this podcast to your friends. And I will see you next week. Thank you very much. Bye bye.